Hi, everybody. It's today, and you know what that means. Another episode of Sarcastic Distractions. And with you, as always, is the Gentleman Society of Podcasting. My name is Harvey, and with me, as always, is the ever loving AJ and my heterosexual life mate, David. And we are going to talk about something that, well, you just don't hear a lot about in popular social circles. And I think it's time that we do express our opinions on this subject. And that would be the world of extreme knitting. I, I don't know if that's a real thing or not, but we are going to talk about knitting today. Should be, for sure. And our resident expert, David, has been knitting for a while. As cool as that sounds, I know. So you tell us all about knitting. Like, tell us.
Sure, yes.
Yep. Yeah.
So basically, you've already got to the point, which is, anybody that knows how to knit knows how to kick ass chew bubble gum and do it all, because fuck it, they can make it all themselves. No, for me, I guess the simplest thing is I won't jump into what I consider knitting. We'll do that conversation in a bit. But really, for myself, like I have to admit, it was my mom going all the way back to, being 6-ish years old and her teaching me how to knit a scarf.
Wow.
Yeah, no, it was. And what's a funny thing is I believe I finished it. I obviously have no memory of actually wearing it outside or anything of that nature, but I do remember sitting there knitting away, watching, or not necessarily watching, but TV in the background, doing that sort of thing. And then, just I remember doing that as a young kid. And of course, like any good young kid, at a certain point, and I don't know the exact age, no, knitting's not for me. I'm not going to do any more knitting. F that. No, done. And then no more. It wasn't until I got in my 20s that I restarted it. And to be honest, I restarted just because I was doing a lot of biking at the time, still doing biking, but I would have to actually, bike when it was cold out. And I wanted something that would go across the ears, but not actually interfere with, the very safe biking helmet, which again, that's a whole other discussion where I learned that biking helmets are important after a couple of wipeouts, a little bit of an incident with a truck, all those fun things. Whole other episode. Yeah, whole other episode.
That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah.
So you knitted out of necessity then?
Yeah, I don't remember. I think it was more just I couldn't find anything from a store that I really was looking for. I mean this in the nicest way possible. I could find pink things, frilly things for young women coming into their own. But even with all of my I wanted something that was just black or brown or whatever color just to put on the ears, and that way I could still bike with a helmet. Again, safety important. But yeah. So that's when I kind of dusted it off and restarted, and that in that funny human way kind of resparked that whole shit. I don't mind this knitting thing. I can sit here, watch a movie, and at the end of the movie, I've actually not only enjoyed the movie but produce something with my hands.
That's pretty
something
cool.
Appropriate, of course.
Yeah. Wow. I know nothing about knitting. Can you explain a little bit of the details of what the process of that is?
Yeah. The nice thing, again, from my perspective, when you're doing just a simple knit, you cast on, you knit through based on the number of stitches, usually based on the pattern, and then you cast off, where it gets a little bit more fun. And again, all I have are the needles. There are a variety of different types of needles and ways of passing on. And actually, I do have jumping ahead a little bit, but that's okay. I can share.
It's your podcast, man. Do what you want.
Is where I'm actually doing the old 80s ankle socks. Why? Just because I needed to practice knitting in the round. That's where you actually knit in the round and actually go through, do the double-sided needles, and you can actually have it cast on so that way it stays in the round and you don't have to stitch in the round, which is nice.
That is cool. So,
because I have a version where I was playing and I stitched in the round. You can't see it from the outside. You can kind of see it, but on the inside you can really see it. Camera shot.
Oh yeah, look at that. There's the money shot right there.
Yeah. That's so when it comes to the actual length of time per project, there is no specific guarantee at all on it. And it in some ways it depends on complexity, of course, the type of knits that are going on. Like if you're just doing a knit all the way through, that's relatively simple. Whereas you're doing like a knit, knit, purl, purl, or even more complex when you're transitioning from one to another, the increases plus the length. Like, and in fact, I probably should try and go. I'll share a picture, or maybe go upstairs and actually steal it from my daughter's bed. But made a whole not a comforter, but a large blanket by knitting this entire thing from start to finish. And that one took me, oh
But
gosh, 4-ish weeks, 5-ish weeks.
I can't even tell you how over my head this is. What the hell does knit, knit, purl, purl mean? I don't even know.
What's
Just
what's the difference between knitting and stitching and
Yes.
yeah, like
so, and that's one of those funny things where, so I can tell you my perspective on it. To me, knitting is just where you're picking up various needles and you're bringing the actual material together in a certain way in order to produce it. And whereas, when you actually have you're sewing or doing something like that, you're more doing a fabric type aspect to it.
Oh,
But
so knitting is the joining of fabrics to create something versus sewing is usually you're sewing something onto a fabric.
well, sewing is, you actually taking multiple fabrics and sewing them together. So again, with all the COVID fun, I actually did make my own face mask at the start by doing sewing. You can never do a knit mask by any stretch.
No,
We can make
not,
like a pretty one, but
yeah,
stuff
not effective. Yeah.
it wouldn't do much.
Yeah, no. So that's where it gets into that fun stuff. And again, that's where even my experience is not way up there by any stretch. I had fun, building this lovely sweater that I have on. Thanks
So
to my
did I.
mother-in-law. Oh yeah. My mother-in-law gave me all the materials, everything for it. So to actually go through, and what I love about this one, because this was something that she actually gave me, 4 years ago, 5 years ago. It was finished last year, and she actually had to do the bringing the pieces together. So I went and knitted the arms, knitted the body, all these different
Okay.
elements.
That's
The
cool.
skill to actually get things to knit properly, I couldn't achieve effectively. I would start it, not get a result I wanted, get pissed off with it. So eventually I had to basically call in the experts, and she came in, kick butt. And that's the thing I love about going through it, because I get to sit there, do it. And as I said, I keep teaching. And while there is, definitely things you need to purchase, like, I say purchase, but like I bought circular needles the other day. I think that's about it. Everything else has been given to me. People are like, you're into knitting? I get bags full of threads. I got multiple bags full of needles sitting over here on my floor, which I could pull out and shake, but they'll make a big clanging sound, but that's about it for you. So
Why do I feel there's like a lot of jealous knitters watching this right now, or listening to this right now? Like, what? You get free threads?
Yeah, I don't think. Well, and again, you get the pieces of it. So that is the one thing that I have learned, mostly doing the blanket upstairs, where I got about 3/4 of the way through, and I was like, it's not quite as long as I want it to be. I want to extend it, but in order to extend it, it's not just as easy as going to the store to pick up the same. You actually have to make sure you pick up the same coloring. There's a code that goes along with a lot of the actual knitting, so that way, when you go to bring in this new ball of thread, the knitting stuff, it actually will go, and you want to make sure it's the same manufacturer number, all those pieces, because otherwise it's going to look different.
Yeah. I never even thought of that as logistics wise when it comes to something like knitting. But that would be so damn important.
Yeah, that's also why pretty much everybody has 1 or 2 balls sitting around, because they went and bought extra to be sure. Even I've done the same, where I now have 2 extra balls of this special, I shouldn't say special, but the special fabric, which I could go and, I don't know, I'll find something to make with it, because it's a very thick thread when it comes to the actual knitting.
What would you say the hardest thing you've made? So like the most difficult, most challenging?
The hardest would be the sweater, actually. So this was definitely the most challenging.
Yeah.
Now, this one I cheated on, because as I mentioned earlier, I didn't actually get the chance to finish it with my own 2 hands. I had to call in,
It's got to feel really great being able to wear something that you made. Do you know what I mean? It's got like, there can't be a better feeling. I mean, like, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, and that's one of those, and it's that twofold thing. So I have to admit, for me personally, it's that, like, I'll sit there and watch a movie, and sometimes I'm watching the movie, like I'm totally engrossed, and so I'll have my knitting needles, and I'm just like, and that's all I'm doing. Like I'm not actually knitting. I'm just sitting there with the needles. I have done this. Other times, it's a good show, good movie, but I'm not fully in it, and I'll be knit. And and this is now more just an experience thing for me. If it's a simple, hey, I'm just knit the entire roll, purl the entire roll, I can watch as my hands are kind of doing their thing, and 98% of the time it's okay. Once in a while you slip, and you're like, oh, you get to back that, and you have all the fun. Yeah, you learn how to fix your craft too as you start to go through it. But yeah, no,
what a craft is. What is a craft?
That was my polite way of saying your shit, your crap. I've done my happy face hand cloths. Those are another nice one. I don't know if they'll show up nice on the camera here, but we can always try. One of those things that it's more a texture thing.
Yeah.
Oh, you can see the happy face.
So
yeah.
How
it's
do you
like
get the raised
embroidered
texture on it? Like how's
So that's where you go into a different basically style of the knitting. So it's one of those things that a lot easier done in pictures, and there's very professional people that can demonstrate it, but that's your differences between knit purl. So where it's nice and smooth, I'm knitting, purling, and then when you get into the next one, you start to reverse and do different actual knitting methods to give it that different texture, different styles, basically.
It seems like it's akin to reading a book in a way, right? Like you pick up a book, you read a couple pages, put the book down, doing whatever, kids doing their thing, or TV's on the background. You're not necessarily, maybe it's the wife's show or something like that. Yeah, so it seems like you could pick it up and put it down easily.
Yep. And it's funny you bring up book, because it's one of those things I would love to figure out how to do. I've tried, failed miserably, to read and knit.
Oh, geez.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. But I cannot do it. I've done a mini test, and it's very much I knit, stop reading while I'm knitting, then I stop knitting and I read. And it's like one of those, well, what's the point? Or at least if it's a TV, definitely with radio, like that's no problem. I can multitask it, but when it comes to because I would have the same idea, I'm like, you know what, I should read a book as I'm knitting. That'd be amazing. And about 10 minutes into that, I was like, nope, I can't do this.
That's wow. Well, I mean, it's like an extreme version of like patting your head and rubbing your tummy.
Yeah.
Well, and it is like no. It's funny though, because I have to admit, I also went and searched the internet, because I'm like, okay, well, what are people's hints? And most people agree that it's basically insane. But there was a few people that are like, yeah, as long as you can knit without looking at the needles, you can read. And I'm like, yeah, no, I don't have that skill level. I need to be looking mostly, unless I'm kind of in a full routine of, as we talked about earlier, I'm just knitting through the row or purling through the row. No, I need to look.
You need your checkpoints, right? Yeah. Today, folks, if you're watching and not listening, we're all wearing knitted wear of various forms because we're talking about knitting. And this here thing, actually, this isn't quite knitted. What I'm wearing is a crocheted scarf. It's a Christmas gift given to me by my sister-in-law, Elise. Shout out to Elise. You're the best. And from what I understand, Dave, there's like crocheters and knitters are not fans of each other. Like there's a serious discrepancy there. Am I right?
So in full honesty, I truly don't know. It's just one of those things that anytime you hear people like bring up a different thing that's similar, it's like, nah, let's start this fight. But I truly do not know, because it's one of those things that, to me, it's similar. Like you get people that crochet, people that cross stitch, people that knit, people that sew, and often there's that intertwine. I find, like, as we were chatting about, before we started officially, I can sew, no problem at all. Not an expert by any stretch, but I can sew. But yeah, I cannot crochet. I don't even think I've ever crocheted. Mind you, what's funny, my wife crochets. And again, it was something that Sam, my daughter, she was actually quite into. Like me when I was younger, she's kind of moved on to, no, I'm 12 years old. I don't crochet crap. I go and watch YouTube for 10 hours.
Yeah.
The YouTube for 10 hours is a bit before my time, but still.
I love this that we're talking about your passion knitting. As silly as it sounds, it's really great to see how much it's affected yours and your family's life. If someone's watching or listening to this, they want to get into knitting or crocheting, like where would you tell them to start? Obviously YouTube, obviously Google, all that stuff, but like, what do they need? What do they need to do?
Yeah, Google out certainly the procedures, but again, to get started, there's a website called Ravelry. Ravelry. that would actually be the one, because there's lots of instructions, getting going, links, and it's a well-structured site, and they have a clear separation of, hey, here's free patterns, and there's tons. Here's patterns that'll cost you, if you really want it, $5, $10, whatever the person who created it is.
So Raveling.com you send them to.
Yes, Ravelry.com. And again, I'll send you the links, and we can tie it to the show.
Yeah, we'll have links in the show, exactly, for those that want to start and stuff like that. And maybe when COVID's like not a thing, we can get together and you can teach us a few of your cool ass.
We'll have a knitting time. That's a great idea. Yeah. I love this idea.
Right. But we'll knit with metal in the background, so it's cool, right?
German death metal.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh yeah. Well, we'll make, and again, actually, the one thing that jumps in my head, dishcloths. Sort of, again, definitely go and do the search. But the nice thing about dishcloths is you can just knit. You can just basically knit out a nice little square rectangle, rock and roll from there. You don't need to do any special.
Already in passing, you've mentioned dishcloths, socks, blankets, hats, gloves. Mm-hmm. Do you know how? Your sweater. Is there anything you like? How many articles have you made? Have you just made like everything? Like, you're just gonna make your house out of knitting next, or what?
So I'm doing the socks next. After that, I have no idea. I did make a joke that I was gonna make underwear.
Do it.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah. I made that joke with my wife that was going to be the next thing, and then I could basically walk around with an entirely knitted outfit.
You could give your wife some nice knitted lingerie for Valentine's Day or something.
With some nice tassels,
You know what? That's going on the list. I like this idea. I'm just trying to
keep us, you have to keep us updated on that project.
No,
we don't need to see final results.
Whatever. No. I will share what it looks like when it's worn, but I'll be the one wearing
that's fair.
Okay.
Fair enough, I can deal with that.
I mean, we wouldn't be friends.
Of course.
That's the only reason Chris he's been friends with you this long, just so he could see you in knitted lingerie. That's his game. That's his gambit.
That's right.
Well, this has been fun, guys. I'm glad we got a chance to talk about knitting in a way that I've never talked about before. Maybe next time we can have a crocheter on, and then you guys can discuss the finer points. The finer points on the two, and we can see which one is better, or if it's just different tools, different jobs, sort of thing. Because I still really don't know. Like, I kind of know the difference, but I kind of know the difference. To be curious to hear, both sides of that.
Yeah, and as I said, I'm definitely not an expert when it comes to crochet or even the knit. I would consider, again, if I get the socks actually done in a way that I can wear them in a full, honest way, then I'm now intermediate.
That's true. You're leveling up, bud. You're leveling up.
That's my goal.
Well, guys, as always, this has been fun. I want to say thanks again for joining us today, everybody that has. We want to celebrate your passion, whatever they are. So let us know in the comments or through socials or whatever, what you're into and what you want to talk about. If you want to be a guest on here and talk a little bit more about what it is that drives your passion and gets you up in the morning doing what you do. Until then, I just want to say one thing out. If you are watching this, you are listening to this, I just want to send a little shout out to let you know that you matter and that you're important. And I just hope that you have a good day. Until then, this has been a Sarcastic Distractions. As always, my name is Harvey.
Oh, and I'm Dave. Sorry.
Okay.
And I'm AJ.
And as always, you've been distracted. So thanks for joining us. We look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great day.
Take care, Bill. And do try knitting.